America turns 250 years old this year. No need to wait until the 4th of July to celebrate. Common sense tells us to celebrate now. That and more on My St. Louis Live. Okay, friends, 2026, it is a huge year. It marks the 250th anniversary of our nation's independence back in 1776. And I think most of us think, okay, we have a few months to go until the 4th of July. That's when we'll celebrate. But no, the 4th of July would not have happened without Thomas Paine publishing a best-selling pamphlet called Common Sense exactly 250 years ago on January 10th. And we are celebrating and we're kicking off the semi-quincentennial year of our nation with our favorite celebrity historian, Raffi Andonian. It's good to see you.
Hey, what a way to kick it off. And you know, it's going on for the next several years, right? Because the American Revolution was several years long. But this is the big one with independence, 250, baby.
We are looking forward to it. But as we mentioned in the intro, January 10th was a big day because Thomas Paine's pamphlet came out.
Kicking off, yep.
Why? Why so influential?
Because it kicked off the cause to independence. So I'll give you an example. It takes the protests that are taking place in the American colonies that we've heard of, like the Tea Party and many other things, from being something that is protesting against the authority of Parliament and the policies of Parliament, to the shift to say independence from the empire entirely. That makes it very influential. Let me give you some specific numbers so you understand. 100,000 copies of this pamphlet, Common Sense, 47 pages, were sold in the first 3 months after it released in January 1776. Over the course of the Revolution, over the next several years that I described, it would sell 500,000 copies, adjusted for population. Let's see what that means. 2.5 million people live in the colonies at the time, both free and enslaved. So let's adjust that to today. I did some mathematics here. I went to the Guinness Book of World Records and I looked at the most viral post in Instagram history, and it's Lionel Messi's post after he won the World Cup.
Okay.
75 million likes is what it got. You would have to take that number, adjusting to today's world population, and that Instagram post would have to get quadruple the likes of the 75 million that it got to get to the lower end of that range of 100,000 back then here in the colonies. That gives you an idea of how viral this actually went, and that's just the sold copies. There's, of course, copies that were read out loud, copies that were pirated. You don't have the same regulations on publication and copyright at the time. So it was huge and set the landscape on fire, and that's what makes it so influential.
So that's why so many people got their hands on it. Why was it so compelling, though?
Because of the argument that it made in plain spoken English language. Because a lot of the leaders at the time were speaking in abstracts, if you will, and the abstract philosophies didn't connect with the common folks. He was himself not extensively formally schooled, although he was a self-learner, and he could write in a way that it would appeal to their emotions, to understand the common folks, to understand. That's why I made it Common Sense. I'll give you a fun couple of lines to see the language that's so emotional in it, okay? He says, for example, of more worth is one honest man to society and in the sight of God than all the crowned ruffians that ever lived. Or
agree.
how about another one he makes the case for? He says, even brutes do not devour their young, nor savages make war upon their families. He's referring to the king opening fire with Lexington and Concord and Bunker Hill having taken place already in 1775. And finally he says, he gives hope, and he says, when he's trying to give them hope after all the accusations that they're making, right? And he says, we have it in our power to begin the world over again. That's the kind of emotional tug that he has. And because of that, the shift happens and elicits what he calls the inextinguishable feelings. You can't extinguish these feelings once they are in you. And he sees monarchy, ultimately, as an affront to God. And think about how radical that is at the time, because you're no longer protesting with Bunker Hill and Lexington and Concord, Patrick Henry's Liberty and Death speech, Paul Revere's Midnight Ride. All of those things are protests against Parliament. This shifted to say, we don't want any kings.
And what amazed me about the timeline of all of this is the fact that we mentioned January 10th is when it came out. It was distributed widely over 3 months. But then, bam, by the 4th of July, we have the Declaration of Independence. That's
months.
Not a lot of
in
time.
6 months, you're going from simply being protests. In fact, there was an olive branch petition that the colonial Congress put out just months prior to the king saying, look, all of these, even though we open fire, are just protests as loyal subjects to the king. It's just your administrators that we don't like and we want to change some policies. So they're declaring loyalty just months before common sense. But months after common sense, they're declaring independence. That's the shift that common sense did.
I was not expecting on a Monday in January my heart rate to be rising and me ready for
250 years ago now. That's what we're talking about.
I love it. USA!
The inspiration.
USA! Get ready to chant it. That's why we keep having this guy come back. Thank you for being so spirited and teaching us so much. And to see more of Raffi, just head to his website, celebrityhistorian.com. We'll also post this segment after the show, firstalert4.com/mystlive. Leah, this gets me ready for the Winter Olympics and cheering us on.
It really does. It's also, it's a funny year for me to be marrying somebody from England.
Oh, yeah.
Given everything that's going on.
Yeah,
with us.
just before the 4th as well.
Yeah, what timing is all I can say. Well, thanks, Laura.
What a fun show.
I'm learning so much. We had Raffi.